Okay, so what's your profession?
I'm a registered dietitian.
And what made you decide to take that route?
Well, I was always into sports, or I was always into nutrition and health, being a gymnast, starting at age 5, doing it all through my high school career. And I actually went into college as a psychology major, realized I didn't want to analyze everyone's personal problems, and took a health and wellness class as an as a gen ed, and fell in love with it and realized, I've always kind of had a passion for eating healthy and overall wellness, and it kind of just took off from there.
Awesome. Okay, so have you seen Food Inc. before?
I have.
And what are your
yes.
thoughts on the film?
I think the film is a must-see for everyone. I think it's very eye-opening and provocative in how it shows our food system and how it's evolved over the years. It is biased, so you do have to take it with a grain of salt, but I think, it kind of shows you, what we actually are eating, and people kind of have that disconnect now. We don't live by farms. We're not, seeing how our food is being grown. We just kind of go to a supermarket and it's there and it's ready and it's picked and it's, bright and colorful and clean. But it goes through a series of steps to make to the supermarket. So I think seeing how that happens and, the sustainable practices that they're not using, and inhumane practices, especially meat production, that is really exhibited in the film, is eye-opening. And I think as Americans, we take our food for granted, and to kind of see the process, is essential for everyone. So I think it's a great film to see, not just for nutritionists and people in the health and wellness field, I think for the general public.
How do you think what is biased about the film?
Well, it's only getting a small perspective. I mean, you have to look, it's like that one producer's view. He talks to a couple of farmers. I mean, I think with any documentary, it's biased to some extent. And so, you can't believe everything you're hearing. I mean, that's kind of, being in this field, you have to question everything.
Yeah.
Just because one study came out saying this, you can't necessarily believe it. So I think, you just have to be careful of what you're believing and what's being told to you, and the truth behind it.
What do you personally think the main challenge in our current food system is?
It's a good question. I think there's a lot of difficulties. Originally, I went into nutrition to do food policy to change the way our food's produced, but spent about 3 months in D.C. and realized how challenging policy can be and how slow change can be made. I think our biggest problem is that these monopolies that are running our food industry have so much money, and they basically are running the show, and it's a deterrent. And sadly, I wish I could have stayed in D.C. and helped make changes, but I kind of came to realize the biggest change I can make right now is voting with my fork and sharing knowledge with others. And
so now you're teaching.
Where I am right now.
So what...
Can't really take on the big companies yet. I know the money. No one does. That's the problem.
I know. It's all about the money now.
Yeah. Oh, it's like 4 companies that run everything.
It's horrible. Especially...
It's really, really challenging.
Like in the movie, they have the boy or the mom of the boy, the 2.5-year-old, who dies of E. coli in 12 days from eating a hamburger.
Yeah.
And she had no idea.
Yeah. I know. So that's, I see that too in the hospital. With the E. coli. So that's the difference between like here and Europe. So Europe's cattle farm is a lot smaller scale than we have here. Mm-hmm. Here we have these big, huge farms with thousands of cattle. So the chances of infections are so high, and they're not clean. They're not, these animals are not being fed the food they're supposed to be fed. They're on corn diet when they're actually should be eating grass. So they're pumped with antibiotics, which is making us antibiotic resistant, which I see in the hospital now. Mm-hmm. The flip side. So it's just, there's so many issues that go on with our food industry. And the sad part is that everyone needs to eat to live. So it's something we all share in common, and it should be like our top priority. And, nutrition is related to so many diseases, and it can be, can help prevent a lot of diseases. But the rate that our industry is going into, it's, causing more harm than good.
Yeah. So obviously, what do you think of like the assembly line type of operation and how McDonald's uses it, like the advantages and disadvantages?
So the advantage for them, this is why fast foods do it, is they want it to taste the same everywhere. And that's how that works.
Yeah.
You know, and it's efficient and cost effective. But quality wise, you know, it's not good quality meat. Everything's frozen and reheated. It's mass production. So I think it's quantity over quality with McDonald's.
But the thing is we have our growing population, and there's so many of us. Like, what do you think is more? Is there a more efficient way to solve this, or do you think this is just going to stay how it is forever?
Well, I think there is a revolution going on now with, you know, supporting local farmers, but I wish I could say having local farms in each county, you know, having their own food system, but as Americans, we're used to having all foods year round, so we would have to give that up. I mean, we couldn't have, you know, bananas right now if we were eating local. You know what I mean? So as Americans, we would have to make that adjustment. As far as feeding everyone, we still have so many underfed individuals in America, yet we produce so much food and we waste so much food. And so, unfortunately, I wish I had an answer to fix that. But I do think, you know, there could be more sustainable practices that these companies could be using. You know, especially like antibiotic-free meat. That's a huge thing, and that's really pushed in our hospital because we have a lot of individuals that are resistant to all these antibiotics. And 80% of antibiotic usage goes to animals. Yeah. Which is crazy. You know? It's like, that doesn't seem right. So
something's wrong.
Yeah, I think that's a big aspect. And then I guess it goes kind of on with with farmers. I know they exhibit one guy who kind of gets sued for using Monsanto seed. And so that's like a huge deterrent. And I know individuals out in Michigan who are paid not to farm from the government, which is crazy. And these big monocultures that we're doing with genetically modified organisms, you know, is really, really affecting our agricultural system, our ecosystem. You know, it's altering it, and I don't know what so far the long-term consequences don't look good. So, you know, I know they do genetically modified foods to help feed more people, but we still have hungry people. We're not utilizing all of the food that we're producing. So I'm not really sure. I'm still learning.
Is there any other films that you would recommend, or would this be like your top one?
I think this is a really good one. A new one that just came out is called Fed Up. And that one is about sugar and our obesity and, you know, sugar and all these processed foods and kind of the politics behind it. It kind of touches on gastric bypass and just our obesity epidemic that we see in America. And it's more prevalent in younger individuals now. And it's, you know, it's eye-opening. It's scary. Yeah. We may, you know, these generations come in maybe the first to not outlive their parents, which is crazy to even think of that.
Yeah.
So that just came out. That was excellent. I do like Fast Food Nation by Morgan Spurlock. I had to read that in undergrad and watch the book, but he eats McDonald's for 30 days, and I think the point, you know, that it shows is the lab results. His like biochemical changes and metabolic changes that happen over 30 days from eating this food is very fascinating. So it kind of shows that it's not good for us.
Yeah.
So that was one of the first films I saw that I really liked. Trying to think of any other films. There's a ton out there.
Any books like Eating Animals?
Yep, Eating. I know I gave you that.
I know.
That one's great. That, you know, is written by someone who's not in the nutrition field, and he just wants to go learn about meat production. And, you know, I think after that, a lot of people turn vegetarian or flexitarian.
I've been eating tofu.
Yeah.
It's actually really good.
It is. It is really good.
Yeah.
Trying to think of, you know, there's a ton of books out there. You just got to be careful with who's writing the books as well. Again, it is biased. For example, you know, like Wheat Belly that came out, and now there's the gluten-free craze. gluten's not that bad for you. And there's one doctor writing that book, so you just have to be careful. Nutrition's very controversial.
Yeah.
So there's it's ever changing. So, you know, you got to stay up to date.
Okay, well, this is good, so thank you. Yeah, I'm turning this off.
You're welcome.